But the herbicide Roundup is also sprayed on some non-GM crops. For example, much of the wheat grown in the U.S., maybe 80–85% from what I've read. So many people might know that. They might be avoiding a GM crop, thinking they're going organic, but in fact they're not. They'll still be exposed to the Roundup and the glyphosate. Why are these non-GM crops sprayed with these products?
No, the reason's quite clear. It increases a little bit the safety margin for farmers. So the idea is to kill the crop more rapidly. Normally a grain crop, you would, after it seeds, you let the crop dry out before you harvest it, and this takes a few weeks or some finite period of time. And if you can kill the crop very rapidly with Roundup or other, herbicides, then this speeds up the process, and it reduces the risk of rain and mold and this type of thing. So it's obviously not necessary. We've had 10,000 years of agriculture without this, but they found this is another way. I mean, the main goal of these companies is to sell their poisons, right? And this is the history of most of these biotech companies that produce the seeds is they're chemical companies, and the idea is to sell these chemicals. So this was another way to do it. And what surprising to me when I talk to people, most people are not aware of this. And so essentially any grain crop that's not only here but in Europe and other places, and things like sugarcane, South America, Central America, these crops are sprayed before harvest with Roundup or something similar to kill them. And this is certainly at the present time the highest source of exposure to glyphosate. So as you're aware, I mean, you can now measure glyphosate in your urine. It's in the foods. People are starting to publicize this. There's information out there. It was basically difficult, and somewhat, people didn't. There was a lot of social pressure not to publicize this. But now that there's public access to being able to get your urine measured, people are realizing it. Essentially, there's this massive contamination of humanity, at least in the Europe and the United States. Essentially, everybody has got this in their blood, in their body, at quite high levels, and that's much less, about tenfold less in Europe and the United States. But even, like myself, I had myself tested, and I have like a fourfold over the European limit that's in their drinking water, like 0.4 parts per billion, which is tenfold lower than the U.S. thing. So basically, everybody has this in their system, and it's probably the most massive chemical contamination of the human population ever. I would say much worse than DDT or any of these other things. So the question is whether that's relevant or not. And this has been the big issue, in this debate, is whether these low levels of glyphosate which have been shown to be toxic and probable carcinogenic, whether these lower levels are significant. And I think that another paper by Michael Antonou, his English scientist, shows that this is in fact the case, because he looked at rats which were exposed to very low levels of Roundup, and these rats developed a fatty liver disease, which is a precursor to liver cancer. Yes. And if you look at the American population, about 50% of these of Americans have this non-alcoholic form of fatty liver disease. And and this has increased recently along with liver cancer the last 20 years, and it's much higher in this areas in the United States where they do a lot of farming.
That's very interesting.
But what's interesting from a scientific point of view, so when science, you like to know the end result of the observation, whether a drug works or not, but you like to know how it works. And so what was really nice about this Michael's study, and it was followed up by something which he didn't know about, from what I understand, another study where they actually found the molecular target for for glyphosate. And this target turned out to be an enzyme in liver that breaks down fat. So this glyphosate inhibits this enzyme, and that produces accumulation of fat in the liver of these animals. And so you have an observation of a toxicity, you have the molecular mechanism, and it seems to me this would be an extremely strong argument about the toxicity of glyphosate.